You're listening to the Toolstation Western League podcast with Ian Knockholds and Tom Hiscott.
Welcome, listeners, to episode 5 of the Toolstation Western League podcast with me, Ian Knockholds, and I'm delighted to be joined on the line by the author of the bulletin. It is Tom Hiscott. Hello, Tom. How are you?
Yeah, doing well, thanks. Yourself?
I'm not bad. Did you catch any football at the weekend?
Didn't manage to get out, unfortunately. No, not this weekend. But how about yourself?
Well, I would love to talk about the Western League football that I watch, but normally, of course, if I don't watch Western League, I go and sort of dabble with the dark mistress that is Southern League football, which I have not done this time. But I did go and watch a match, but it was in and you're going to love this. It was in the Trowbridge Windows and Conservatories Trowbridge and District Football League.
I do love that.
Yes, I thought you would. I'll bring it back to Western League football, though, because, of course, there were 2 member sides playing, albeit it was their reserves. It was the Wiltshire derby between Devizes Town and Cairn Town. It was a highly entertaining game, 6 goals, of which I saw 5.
Pretty good record for you.
Late. Well, that's right. Yes.
Usually miss them all, so it's pretty good going.
Well, very much so. And my daughter Betty did do her best to try and sort of interfere with the entire proceedings, but no, I think even she nearly managed to enjoy herself. Yes, highly entertaining game. There was a few people in the ground as well, but it was a nice way to spend a Saturday afternoon. But of course, I probably should have gone to watch Devizes' first team in their game away at Hengrove, but I'm sure we'll be coming to that later in the podcast. Oh, yeah. On this edition of the podcast, episode 5, we will be speaking to the manager of Brislington, Lee Perks. They had another good win in the Premier Division, and we will be taking this opportunity to catch up with Rod Broadbank. He is the new manager at Devizes Town, and we'll be getting his take on that impressive away win at Hengrove. We will be, of course, looking at the matches on Saturday, the 7th of September. But we're going to start, aren't we, Tom, with a little look at those games that happened earlier in the week. And there were 2 of them on Monday and Tuesday. 2 of our sides were in action in the FA Cup extra preliminary round. Yeah,
pretty momentous start to last week. I mean, I think we'd looked ahead and kind of said that we fancied their chances. And both Shepton Mallet and then Exmouth qualified from their replays. Obviously had good results in the opening legs, going up against top or higher class opposition or higher ranked opposition, and then in the replays they managed to progress. Shepton Mallet winning 3-2 away at Melksham on Monday night. Asa White scoring the winner for Mallet there, and then the following evening 451 people in attendance, which is a absolutely fantastic achievement for Exmouth, and they beat Yate 2-0. So yeah, 2 fantastic results against Southern League opponents.
Absolutely. There was also a game, of course, in midweek with Bradford Town against Bridport, and they triumphed 4-2. There was a good crowd, very healthy crowd at Trowbridge Road for that game. But really, the most important matches on our podcast this week are the FA Cup first qualifying round matches on Saturday, the 7th of September. We talked, I think, in previous weeks about the fact that quite interesting to note that a lot of the Western League sides are coming up against higher level opposition, and unfortunately I think it probably proved that class told in the end, Tom, with our sides going out. But it was the all Western League tie that provided an awful lot of entertainment, an awful lot of goals, and will also mean that one side, and we don't know who, of course, but one side will be making its way through to the next round of that competition.
Real at Langsford Park on Saturday afternoon. Shepton enjoying the best of the opening half. Asa White doing well again, getting the first goal after less than 5 minutes before Reece Shanley levelled things up for the home side. But then it was Shepton who pushed on. Kieran Bailey and Joe Morgan each scoring in the second half of the first period to give them a 3-1 lead. Before Tavistock managed to pull it back after half time. Jack Crago scoring twice for them. The second goal for him coming 15 minutes from time. And as I say, sets up Tuesday's replay to see which one of our Western League sides will be the final one in the FA Cup this season.
Absolutely. I mean, fantastic, really, for all of the sides that managed to get that far in the competition, and eventually class, of course, will tell. But it's a bit of a fairy tale for those sides, Tavistock and Shepton, to keep going. What a wonderful encounter that they played out there. So that's fantastic news. We still had a few games, didn't we, in the Premier Division to talk about, and we're going to kick our roundup off with Brislington arguably the surprise package of the Premier Division this season. They were on their travels. They went away to Bridport.
Yeah, and there was some late drama in this one. Brislington had been knocked out in the FA Vase and the Cup over the last few weekends, so a welcome return to league action for them, and a 2-1 win away at Bridport. Going ahead just before half-time through Oakland Buck, who headed home a Mason Dagger cross. With Bridport, they managed to find a way back into the game, levelling from the spot through Lewis Clark. But then Brislington managed to steal the 3 points. 4 minutes from time, Mark Fear hit a cross, which ended up nestling in the back of the net, I think. Turned into a shot and gave Brislington 2-1 win away at Bridport.
Do you think that Mason Dagger cross was delivered with pinpoint accuracy?
I would hope so.
Yeah, you'd like to think so with a name
I would
like
like
that,
to think so.
Anyway, on a more serious note, Brislington have started this Western League campaign very well indeed. So I thought this was a good time to catch up with their manager, Lee Perks. And I started off by congratulating Lee on another good win in the Premier Division.
It's early days, obviously, but to get 3 wins on the board at the moment in the league is what we aim to do. So yeah, very, very happy with it at the moment. Yeah.
Bridport traditionally hasn't been an easy place to go. I know they haven't had the best start this season, but still an impressive 3 points. I mean, it was 2-1. Was the game as close as the scoreline suggests?
Yes, it was. In fairness, I mean, we actually went down there last year and actually won 1-0. It was possibly a fair result. Would have been a draw that Saturday, but Saturday just gone. We started really well. We got the goal, and then for some reason we stopped doing the things we were doing. Bridport got back into the game sort of in the last 10-15 minutes of the first half. They didn't score, but it was. We come out second half. They had a bit of a dubious penalty. Make it 1-1. We managed to sort of get the winner right at the end, sort of on the 85th minute. But yeah, it could have went either way. To be honest, they could have won it as well. It was a bit of a close game, yeah. But like I say, delighted to come away from Bridport with 3 points.
How was your pre-season then? Did you think you'd get? Get off to the sort of start that you've been able to make?
We had a good pre-season, to be honest. I have got as we know, we were down the bottom last year and managed to stay up. And I know if I was going to do it again, I needed to attract some players to the football club, which I've done. We have got 5-6 new faces at the football club, which is obviously helping. We did have a good pre-season. We sort of hit the ground running pre-season, and our first game of the season, we were in to Bridgewater. We managed to win that, and then it sort of just kicked us on a little bit. And yeah, everyone at the club is doing okay. Yeah.
Well, you mentioned there you brought a few new faces in. So, can you tell us a little bit about those? Who should the fans be looking out for this season?
Well, it was the case of me. We needed, like I said, some fresh faces at the football club. So this year, I sort of, after the season finished, I've given it a couple of weeks, and then I started phoning people around who I wanted to come to the club, and managed to, like I say, grab 4 or 5 from different teams. And like I say, we've all, it's not just them; it's everyone else at the football club as well. And we managed to have a good start, and like I said, that's the only thing it is at the moment. We're just taking one game at a time and go from there. But I grabbed a couple of players from Hengrove. A couple of players one from Broadbank. So yeah, things are, the football club's going okay.
Now, you've talked about the disappointment of last season, but what are your expectations for where you want Brislington to finish this campaign? It's
going to be another sort of hard season, to be honest, as well. There's a lot of clubs. I think this is one of the strongest Western League leagues at the moment. There's some good clubs at the top. Your Parkways are going to be there, your Bridgewaters and your Bittons, and then you get the other sort of 5 or 6. And hopefully, if we can carry on the way we're doing, then there's no reason why we can't be in that little bunch behind the 5 or 6. So mid-table above is what we're aiming for. Anything above that would be a bonus. But yeah, like I say, it's early days. Everyone needs to be doing things properly, and hopefully we can still, climb the table.
One of those teams that will be hoping to finish in that sort of second tier of sides, mid-table in the Premier Division, will be Westbury, and they're up next at the Poplar Insulation Stadium. That's going to be a real test for you, isn't it? Yeah,
it is. Funny enough, we got them tonight, so it will be a test. But there's nothing better than going into a game knowing you just won. I've got everyone available. So, it's a bit of an headache again for a selection, which is good for me. But like I say, we're at home, so everyone's buzzing for this, for tonight's game. And if we can get something, I've set a target for the lads on Saturday over the next 3 games. If we can get that, then we'll be delighted. And hopefully, if we can get something out of tonight's game, it will be pushing us on for Saturday at home against Wellington.
Well, that game tonight is the first of 4 games that you've got on the spin at home. Do you think home advantage is going to be important for you this season when picking up those points?
Yeah, well, I mean, we've only played 2 at home this season, which was obviously Bridgewater's first game, and we played Cadbury East, and we won them both. So, yeah, our home game, like you say, we've got 4 games now at home. We've had 3 games away. We was away to Bridgewater, then we were away to Exmouth, and then we were away to Bridport. So we've done a bit of travelling over the last 3 weeks. And like I said, I sort of said in the change rooms, after today's game, the Bridport game, we've got 4 games at home. So we need to make Iron Moorling, people, for us to be solid at home. And if we can pick up a lot of points at home, then I think we'll be okay this season.
And my thanks to Lee for his time. Chipping Sodbury, they were in action against Westbury United.
Yeah, pretty entertaining clash there at the Ridings. Finished 2-2. Chipping Sodbury coming from behind on both occasions to claim the point. Westbury going ahead in fine fashion at the end of the first half. Jordan Pinder hitting an unstoppable drive from just outside the area to give Westbury the lead at the interval. Nathan Brown then managing to get Chipping Sodbury back on level terms before Ricky Holbrook restored Westbury's lead. It was then Sam Makepeace who extended his incredible scoring run to start the season. He seems to score in every game at the moment, and he notched a goal 6 minutes from time to rescue a point, and the equaliser for Chipping Sodbury, so finished 2-2 there.
Now, the biggest crowd in the Premier Division on Saturday came at Clevedon Town, and the home fans will have gone home happy. 3 points for Clevedon and 3 goals, Tom. Yeah,
indeed, and Lucas Vowles, very much the star of the show for Clevedon. As you say, a 3-0 win. Goalless first half, so all the action coming after the interval. Vowles opening the scoring 3 minutes after the restart, before he then turned provider, laying the ball off Ethan Felton to double the lead, with Vowles then completing the scoring during the final 10 minutes, and as you say, made it 3-0, and a really good afternoon for Clevedon.
Now, we're going to spare Wellington's blushes because they're on the end of a pretty horrendous scoreline away at Roman Glass St George. But it wouldn't be fair on Roman Glass not to pay tribute to at least one of their goal scorers, Tom.
Yeah, indeed. Tough afternoon for Wellington, but Roman Glass very much enjoying their Saturday, and it was George Box managed to score a hat-trick for them in an 8-0 win. So as you say, can't go without mention there. So congratulations to George for his treble on the weekend.
Another job, another saving. Brought to you by Toolstation.
Is this all the receipts?
Yes, boss.
For everything we got from Toolstation?
Yeah, why?
I just thought we'd spend a lot more than this.
Oh, no. We got all the best brands too. Makita, Santex, Karcher, Nest.
Top job, top saving.
With over 15,000 trade quality products at prices that are hard to beat, we're here to save you on every job. At toolstation.com and all 340 branches.
Right then, looking down into the First Division, and the Miners continue their good form this season away at Bristol Telephones.
Yeah, and it didn't look like they would be able to continue that good run. 2-0 down pretty early on to the Telephones after just 9 minutes, so a fantastic start for the home side. But Radstock managing to come back and eventually claim a 3-2 win. James Rustall managing to get them back into the game with a well-taken penalty after half an hour, and then it was Jack Biddiscombe who pretty much played a starring role after the break, putting in a cross for Rustall, who managed to score the equaliser, and then Biddiscombe again providing a cross, and it was Rico Sobers who'd come on during the second half, and he managed to steer the ball into the back of the net and give Radstock a 3-2 win.
Before Saturday's game, neither Hengrove nor Devizes had managed a win this season in the Western League First Division. I would like to say something had to give, but of course in situations like this it's normally the case that these games end in a rather dull draw. Well, that wasn't quite the case on Saturday. An emphatic win, Tom, for the visitors. Yeah, well, it ended up being that way. I mean, they had gone ahead after 15 minutes, Matt Swan putting them one goal ahead, as I say, before Hengrove managed to get back into the game. 15 minutes into the second half, scoring their equaliser to make it 1-1. And it was headed towards a draw. It was just about 20 minutes left on the clock before Devizes managed to get their second, and they then managed to score another 3 in the closing stages. So it was really a very much a late blitz from the visiting side. Jamie Wallen scoring a really late hat trick for them, and a fantastic way to get their first 3 points this season. After that impressive victory, I thought this was a great opportunity for us to have a chat with Rob Broadbank. Rob has taken over at Devizes at the start of this season, and he had to wait a little bit of time for his first victory, but it did come last week in the Vars, and now, of course, he's picked up 2 in as many weeks. So I thought we'd start our conversation, not necessarily by talking straight away about the football on the pitch, but asking him a little bit about his background and what brought him to the Devizes Town dugout.
We started off our managerial careers 7 years ago at Highworth Town Reserves. From there, we moved on to Carterton in the Hellenic. When we took over Carterton, they didn't actually have a football team. Their previous team left the league, so the club were effectively folded by the FA. So we took over there. We took most of our team from Highworth across, with a few additions locally. From there, started to build a very good side that was very competitive in the Hellenic Division 1 West. From there, the chairman left and we had a new chairman come in. Unfortunately, his demands on what he wanted from us, i.e. wanted us to pay to play there, etc., we couldn't fulfil, so we left there. Pretty much had a season out of football, just looking around locally, seeing what was coming up. Did try Devizes, to be fair, before we initially got appointed this time, but nothing happened. Anyway, we noticed that Bud and Perks were leaving, so we put our CV in. Subsequently, we had a meeting with Sean and Neil. And from there, we was appointed, and so the journey begins. For us, very excited. Never done Tool Station. We've always been Hellenic, that side. One thing I have noticed and I am impressed about is the football's been very good. That's every game that we've played so far. The level of competition is excellent, I must admit. And some of the football's really good.
Last week, you beat Stockbridge in the FA Vars. How important was it for you and the team to get that first win of the season under your belt?
It wasn't. For us, it's about building something. And I'd say that doesn't happen overnight. Obviously, we've taken over a team that was already there. We've added some new faces from our previous teams. Some very good additions, we think. Probably got rid of some of the people that didn't fit our criteria. So for us now, it's about moving on as a journey and trying to create something that we're sort of proud of and the club's proud of. A win's always important, I think, when you've had a couple of defeats. The only thing I would say on that is the defeats we had, Cheddar away, we were very competitive, and to be fair, probably should have been a draw, but 2 penalties, dubious penalties, I think, myself, personally, we lost the game. Then we played Warminster at home, and that was 1-1 right to the last 5 minutes. We made a couple of substitutions, so did they. Theirs worked with the quality they brought on. Ours didn't. Wincanton away, the score was a bit not reflective of the game, to be honest. 5-2. So for us, we weren't sort of downbeat or worried, if that makes sense. We weren't going into games thinking, blimey, what are we going to do here? We were sort of, we're happy with what's happening. We know what's around the corner. So, like I say, we're quite excited about it all.
I mean, you mentioned earlier in the interview about you've been impressed by the quality of the opposition and the quality of the football that you've come up against so far in the Western League. Cheddar, Warminster and Wincanton, of course, are three of the sides that will certainly fancy their chances this season, three of the division's better sides. So I suppose, in a way, it was a bit of a baptism of fire for you, wasn't it, really, to come up against that quality of opposition so early on in your career here?
It was, and they did sort of say that to us. The club, you couldn't have had a worse start. But what we said to the lads is, well, if that's the case, it can only sort of get better. Hopefully, from here in, if we face three of the potential top sort of 5 or 6 teams, then we sort of put ourselves in good stead moving forward. Somewhere along the line, we've probably still got a few more faces to bring in and fill some spots, but generally I think they're quite happy with what we've got now. It's just a matter of getting the boys to work together how we want them to work.
You must be delighted with the victory on Saturday. Hengrove haven't had the best of starts to life in the First Division, having been relegated last season. I expected better of them, but I mean, you really did put them to the sword on Saturday, albeit you left it a little bit late.
Yeah, we did. It's a bit like the Wincanton, really, for us, in reverse. It was a good game. We went 1-0 up. I'll be honest, we should have been 3 or 4 up at half-time. The game should have been buried. It wasn't. They come out second half, and they had a great 20-minute spell where he put us under a lot of pressure. A couple of silly mistakes, as always, and they scored. Then it was very sort of even for 10 minutes. We made a couple of substitutions, scored within about 2 minutes, and that was it. Then we were just like tails up, and we were very good for the last 20 minutes. I thought we were absolutely fantastic.
Because this is obviously your first time in the Western League, I mean, how important was pre-season for you? Were you happy with how it went?
Yes, we was. Pre-season is always important for us. We try to put on some good sessions, a lot of fitness. Some of these lads don't realise what levels they need to be at. Obviously, for us coming into a lot of new faces, not bringing the side here, bar a couple of faces, was a bit different for us, because obviously we've normally taken our teams wherever we've gone, we've taken a team with us. But that was one of the things that when we spoke to Sean and Neil, they wanted to try and keep a lot of local lads here if we can, if they fit in sort of the criteria and were good enough to keep that sort of base of local players with a few good additions. I'll say pre-season went pretty much as planned, really. Good training sessions, and the lads, even the lads that were here from last year, worked fantastic. They were absolutely a credit to themselves, to be fair. Pre-season games, we had quite a tough pre-season. For us, coming in at the last minute, organising the games, as you know, is sometimes you just have to get what you get. So obviously I went back to my old Hellenic friends and got a few of those for the pre-season games. Shrivenham, Highworth, like I say, very tough fixtures, but we were okay. We sort of knew where we were heading, if that makes sense.
You've mentioned a couple of times that you've kept the bulk of the Devizes squad from last season, but you have added a few faces. From a fan's perspective, what are the names you think that the fans could be looking out for this season?
We've got a couple of new lads. There's a lad called Joe Broadbank. He's very good. He can play centre mid, centre half. He can play anywhere really. Him and he's got a brother, Sam Broadbank, is very good. Those two very consistent. Joe being sort of the very influential one, gets on the ball, likes to play. Sam just gives you 100% every game. We've just signed a new striker, Sean McEwen, played at Southern League, Hellenic Prem. He is 32, but he just knows the game so well. We had him at Carterton for a season, and he just made the team tick. Excellent signing for us. Just need games now to get him fit. So the people we're introducing, a little bit of quality, good lads. They're mixing well with what we've got. And like I say, the Devizes lads we've kept, they're absolutely top lads. Yeah, play some good football and good lads as well, which is important.
Have the club set any expectations for you, or have you set some expectations for yourself this season?
No, they haven't set anything for us. I think personally you always set yourself some sort of target. Being honest with myself, my target would be to better where they finished last year. If it is, it is. If it's not, say we're not here short term, hopefully we're here long term. So for us this year is spending half the year trying to get what we want, and then the second half, getting a good balance of finishing somewhere decent in the table, and then maybe next year having a bit of a crack at it.
You've got the small matter of an FA Vase tie coming up this weekend, and it brings the visit of Newport from the Isle of Wight. Now, this will be a really good game for the home fans to enjoy. The fact that you've got Newport at home, who are going to be a very tough nut to crack, does that make you confident that you can get something out of the game?
I think with results over the last few weeks and the way we've played, we certainly go into the game full of confidence, that's for sure. We won't underestimate them. We know they're doing really well in their league, so they're going to be sort of bang up for it. But for ourselves, it's just about keeping momentum going now. I say we've just started to fill those spots that we weren't quite sure of. The lads are just starting to buy into what we're asking them to do. Yes, it will be a tough game. I think that their league is pretty similar to ours, but sort of across in the Wessex. They're at the top end, we're at the bottom end of our league at the minute. But we're going to go into the game and give it a good shot, that's for sure.
And my thanks to Rob for his time. Moving on, Oldland Abertonians, of course, they've been going incredibly well in the First Division, and their good form continued at home to Almondsbury.
Yeah, absolutely. Early season pace setters, Oldland currently sitting top. Obviously very early days. I think they've played the 6 games so far and doing pretty well, up to 13 points. And their latest victory on Saturday afternoon, a very tense one. A 1-0 win at home to Almondsbury, and the winner coming in the 89th minute. And that was Alex Hoyle, who was in the right place at the right time to give them a 1-0 victory at home to Almondsbury. So good start for Oldland.
And a team that's not been blessed with the greatest results in recent seasons, so it's really good, really positive to see them making such a positive start to this campaign. So that's fantastic. Of course, another side that's made a very positive start to this campaign is Wells City. Of course, we had their manager Nathan Truckle on the podcast last week, and their good form continued at home to a side that we've talked about a lot on the podcast this season, Warminster Town.
Yeah, brilliant match, this one. Wales eventually running out 3-2 winners, and now I think 4 wins from their 5 league games this season. So a really promising start from Wales, and they went ahead through Ross Padfield, who managed to score quite a few last week in the Vase, one of their heroes in that victory. And he was at it again, opening the scoring here before Warminster battled back. Got a deserved equaliser from Lewis Graham midway through the second half. And then the game very much came to life after that goal. Padfield restoring Wells' lead before Jack Millett managed to head home in the final 10 minutes to seemingly give Warminster a share of the spoils. But Wells and Padfield wouldn't be denied. And with just 2 minutes left, he struck again, completing a brilliant hat-trick. And as I say, a 4th league win for Wales this season. They ran out eventually 3-2 winners over Warminster.
Well, that concludes our roundup of the matches played on Saturday the 7th of September. We're going to take a look at the games on Saturday the 14th of September, which will probably be the period in which the majority of people listening to this podcast will be looking at. But of course, we have got the very notable tie. We've mentioned it earlier in the podcast. On Tuesday, the 10th of September, Shepton Mallet will take on Tavistock in that first qualifying round replay. Now, we don't want to give too many of the secrets, too much of the smoke and mirrors of how we put the podcast together, and we don't put that away. But basically, it would have meant delaying this week's podcast to until Wednesday to have interviewed the successful manager that comes out of that game, which I don't think is necessarily what we want to do at this stage. And in fairness, we should really reflect on the fact that both of our sides have done very well to reach this stage. But I'm sure we will be catching up very, very soon with the Shepton manager and the Tavistock manager as well. Of course, Tavistock we've not heard from before on the podcast, so it'll be very exciting to find out about that new member club. But for both sets of supporters, and we wish you both the very best. And of course, I think if that game is half as entertaining as the first fixture was, then I'm sure everybody will have a really good evening there. But we will move straight into the FA Vars second qualifying round. That really dominates the fixtures on Saturday the 14th of September. And what tie has caught your eye, Tom?
We managed to pick out Tavistock again, not purposefully. It was more for their opposition. So we've got Tavistock travelling to take on Cheddar. So obviously Cheddar just missed out on promotion. I'm sure we keep mentioning that, which they'll be really thankful that we keep doing that. Really missed out on promotion just last season, but they've started pretty well in the first division. Probably feel like they're capable of going up against some of the big guns from the Premier Division, and they welcome Tavistock, who've obviously started well in the cup competitions this year, and that's the game that took my fancy from the Vars on Saturday afternoon. So Cheddar versus Tavistock.
And the game that's caught my eye is a game we've already talked about previously on the podcast. Wells City against Newton Abbot Spurs. Of course, Wells in the first qualifying round triumphed over Millbrook, who were doing very, very well in the South West Peninsula League. Well, they come up against another side that's doing well in the South West Peninsula League, Newton Abbot Spurs. We know a bit more about this side because they put 3 past Welton Rovers in the previous round. They'll have no fear against Western League opposition. They'll have no fear against Western League opposition in the first division. However, Wells, as we've said on a number of occasions, are going very, very well. So I think if anybody can give Newton Abbot Spurs a game, it's going to be them. I think that's eminently winnable for our side. I think that given the great form that they've been on, and it's great to see that their crowds have been increasing as well as their results have been improving, I think that would be a cracking day out for those people who can get there. Plenty of really good ties, really good matchups, which take teams from across the Peninsula League and the Wessex League into action against our sides, and we'll be looking forward to summing up those matches for you on next week's podcast. But before we get to that, we have got a few games in the Premier Division. So Tom, which game have you called out there?
5 games scheduled for Saturday, and the one I went for is it's Chipping Sudbury versus Cribbs. Now, early season as we know, but looking at the table, we've got Chipping Sudbury in 17th and Cribbs in 20th. Now, that surprises me quite a bit. I don't think either of those sides will fancy or probably projected that they would be in those sort of positions at this stage of the season. So I think 2 teams probably in need of a win. A bit early to say that sort of thing, but 2 teams that probably fancy getting a few more points than they've got on the board so far this season. So that should be a fascinating contest on Saturday afternoon.
Well, of course, Cribbs took a point off of Bridgewater earlier in the season, and Chipping Sudbury, I mean, we don't necessarily need to labour the point in this episode of the podcast, but of course I think Chipping Sudbury Town, their fans and their playing staff are still coming to terms with the FA's decision to laterally move them, and then their ability to successfully win that appeal. So I don't think that helped them off the field, and I think you're right that there are 2 sides whose league position belies the ability that they have. So I'm sure you're absolutely right there, Tom. That's going to be a cracking game. Now, the one I'm going for, I mentioned Bridgewater just now. Bridgewater, I think we know how good they are. We know what they're capable of, having beaten Plymouth Parkway. But there is that surprise package, isn't there? That is Hallen, the Ray Johnston revolution that's going on there. And Bridgewater travel to Hallen, and I know that there's nothing that Ray would love more than taking 3 points off of one of the division's top sides. So I think that could be an absolute belter as well. Now, we've come to the end of the analysis of the results and the fixtures, but I'm very pleased to say for the first time this season on the podcast we have a league table to pore over, don't we, Tom? And I mean, albeit that some of the Premier Division sides have only played 3 games, albeit I think there's quite a few more games been played in the first division, but we are starting to see things taking shape, albeit that a good run of results at this stage can make the world of difference in terms of shooting a side up the table.
Yeah, I think you do start to see trends and teams that, will fancy their chances of, sticking in, especially the top positions. Obviously, if you can, put together a good early season form and get some wins under your belt, and obviously, having a look at sort of the teams that have scored quite a few as well. Obviously, fancy themselves in front of goal, and so it is, as you say, very early, especially Premier Division. There's quite a few teams in the bottom half who've only played 3 times, so. They'll know that there's plenty of points left on the board for them to play for. But I thought it was just about time to start digging into that, and maybe September was usually the cut-off point for leaving that. So I've included that in the bulletin this week, and it's interesting to pore over.
So who are the early season trendsetters in the Premier Division? We got Bitton, Bradford and Plymouth Parkway at the top of the Premier Division, and I think we'd pretty much expect those three still to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season, wouldn't we? Yeah,
I think those are some of the big hitters. I think if you asked around the leagues, I think if they beat those sides, they're pretty happy with their day's work. So for those sort of teams, and you've also got Bridgewater, who've started pretty well in sixth. I think those four are probably the sides at the moment that you'd pinpoint every Saturday afternoon and sort of look for their result and think they're probably fancy themselves. So Bitton currently top on goal difference. So they've got the 12 points so far. So alongside Bradford and Parkway at the top, that's not bad starts for them.
Now, we spoke about it earlier, didn't we, in terms of the First Division. Oldland Abertonians, of course, sitting on top of the First Division with a goal difference of 1. And that's one of the wonderful anomalies. I suppose it can only happen at this early stage of the season. But, they're being pursued by Carn Town and Cheddar. And again, those are two sides that I think we both expect to be there or thereabouts come the end of the season. Yeah, and two of the teams that certainly, know where the back of the net is. And also, and pretty good at keeping it out the other end. So goal difference wise, those two far and away ahead of Oldland, but Oldland have got the points on the board. But Cheddar 4 wins from 4. I think they'll be pretty happy. They might be third at this stage, but I think they know full well that they're capable of finishing much higher and continuing to rack up the victories. Absolutely. Tom, thank you very much for your time.
Pleasure.
This evening, as always. We've been reviewing your excellent bulletin. Where can the listeners find that?
That's on the Toolstation Western League website. There's a tab along the top, and it's also on the homepage in a couple of different spots. So that's available every Sunday lunchtime.
Excellent stuff. Well, Tom, thank you again for your time, and I look forward to catching up with you on next week's Toolstation Western League podcast.